In the marketing industry, there are frequently these hip new strategies and tools that gain significant attention. Right now, there is a lot of interest in visitor identification tools. So those fall into two primary categories, although there's a lot of overlap between the two. First of all is company identification tools like factors or lead feeder. And secondly would be individual identification tools like RB2B or lead forensics. Now, these tools are designed to de-anonymize and provide website kind of insights around visitors, and that's potentially really valuable data for marketing and sales teams. That said, despite the initial enthusiasm from teams like this around these tools, organizations often struggle to derive long-term value from them. So it'll look something like someone on the marketing or sales team hears about some visitor identification tool. The tool is just quickly thrown on, connected to the website, maybe connected to Slack or Teams or something like that. And the team is initially impressed by the influx of data, but after a month or two, they realize that the tool isn't really contributing significantly, at least, to their objectives and marketing strategies and things like that. It's just not being used. And so the initiative loses momentum and it's eventually abandoned. And oftentimes kind of we're off to the next trend. And so this pattern raises questions about the effective integration of these tools into existing marketing strategies. More often, however, this is less of an issue with the tool and more so about how that tool fits into the existing marketing strategies. So to maximize the value of really any tool, it's critical to view them as a part of a comprehensive whole, a comprehensive marketing tech stack. Rather than operating in isolation, these tools should be integrated into really everything else that's being used as far as makes sense. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So there are a lot of ways that tools like this can help companies. And today I just want to walk through at a very high level an example of how this data can be used to make a real measurable impact on campaigns that we're running as marketers. So I created this really simple miro board just to conceptually walk through how some of these visitor identification tools can be used. I'm not going to dive into the really technical side of this very much, primarily because I'm going to talk about that in other episodes. We'll be here too long. But I just wanted to talk through a little bit how you can use these tools to really impact a lot of the other campaigns that you're running, not just have it be an extra bucket of data, if you will, that kind of sits there unused. And so let me start with really the whole purpose of this. So on the website side of things, as we all know, 95+% of our website is going to be getting traffic from people that we'll never identify. And so they're remaining unknown. They're anonymous. We don't know who they are. We can't really use them beyond maybe a simple remarketing campaign. But identifying those individuals is really the promise of tools like this. But that's really not enough. It's what you do with that information, and that's where the value comes from. And so when you plug in a tool, you can use either company identification, visitor identification, tools that do both. But really, I'm often going to use company for a variety of reasons, although usually they're kind of running in tandem. But for this example, I'm going to use company. Now, these tools will be plugged in, and they'll be often set up with something like Slack or like a Teams notification. So when someone comes to the website, the sales team gets that Slack. That is useful. That's good. And that's really where most people stop. That's as far as it goes. It's just data collection. It doesn't actually get used to do much beyond maybe a sales team is looking at this or get a notification and they see someone come through that they've been talking to on the sales side of things maybe a couple weeks ago. So again, very useful, but we're kind of just crossing our fingers hoping that sales team sees something that triggers something in their mind. None of that's really tracked very well across this. So there's a variety of reasons that really falls through and doesn't create that long-term impact that we want to continue investing in. So it dies in that stage. When we're using tools like this, I am often using a tool called factors.io, and the reason I'm doing that is because it has a really strong segmentation tool, a fantastic webhook functionality, and there's a bunch of other reasons, like their support is absolutely amazing, but there's a variety of reasons. What tool you use and whether you focus on companies or individuals or both is really dependent on your strategy overall and what you're using that data for. I'll walk through a couple examples over here, but you need to work backwards when it comes to this stuff. So what data do you need to take action on to impact your campaign? Don't just collect data and then see what we can do with it. So really that thinking is why I'm often, even in the campaigns I run, as I'm thinking through different tool sets, I'm often just mapping out something like this. Very, very simple. It's not technical. It's just a way for me to visualize what I want to do with this to make sure that it's worth the effort, the investment, and everything like that to push forward with. So in this example, I'm using company identification. Now, there's a bunch of stuff we can do with this. I'm just going to scratch the surface with it. But let me start just really at the top here. LinkedIn. So LinkedIn can has a variety of targeting options we can use. In this example, a quick kind of easy thing to get rolling is just a simple retargeting campaign based on the list of companies that have come on our site. They visited our site, they kind of disappeared, they went on looking at competitors or something like that. But this high-level targeting at a company standpoint is a great way to get a lot of touch points and increase familiarity while we focus maybe more targeted efforts across a variety of other channels. So really, this can be done in a couple different ways, and really a simple version of it can just be done in a remarketing campaign. So this alone is a great thing to do, but it's not really enough to make the tool worth it. A lot of the value comes in what else you do with it. So a lot of companies will have like cold email programs going, or maybe there's some DMs from LinkedIn, or maybe DSP campaigns or things like that. So I'm going to walk through a couple of those. But before we get to that level of targeting, we first need to get the individual data or contact information that we can target. And so in this example, we've focused on the company. And so I'm going to want to collect that information somehow. So I'm often going to want to use a tool like Clay for this. And I have this connected to a variety of other sources. I'll make a video about how I often use Clay. There's a million of them on LinkedIn if you haven't seen them. So a lot of resources there. But who you pull and what information you pull from them is really wholly dependent on who you're selling to. And so you're thinking buying team in this. Who are the decision makers? Who has influence on the decision? Who are the people reaching out? And you want to pull that information and segment that information based on the campaigns that you have. But we know that somebody at this company is researching our product, is interested in our product. And so there is a pain that's existing. There's an active search that's happening. And so these individuals actually have a much higher likelihood of converting across their other campaigns than just pulling any old list off Prospeo or Uplead or Apollo or something like that. Now, this is also a stage where you can run visitor or individual visitor identification in tandem. So, you know, here's the people that have actually visited my website and looked at the pricing page, for example, and then here are the other decision makers on the team, because you'll treat those people differently from a messaging standpoint. So I don't have that here, but just a nuance that we'll often do is to pull kind of both information when it makes sense. Now, something I didn't mention, just to actually jump back briefly, when you're integrating any of these identification tools, you're going to want to make sure to comply to GDPR or whatever privacy laws apply to the company either you're doing this for, whether it's yourself or another company. So just make sure to do that. Make sure your terms and conditions are right. You want to make sure you're kind of respecting privacy as you build these campaigns out, and how you roll this out will vary based on things like that. But I'm not going to dive into too much into that today. Now, so we have people information. We have the maybe some part of the department that we're selling to. Maybe it's the CEO, CFO, whatever, depending on the product we're selling. So we have this information. We can then do tighter targeting around any other campaigns that we have. And so let's say we're running a email campaign, a cold email campaign. maybe for the key decision makers, we want to shoot over a few emails from the sales team, just kind of checking in over the course of a couple of weeks. There's clearly conversation happening at these companies. There's kind of water cooler conversations, if you will, around looking for a solution for the pain that you have. And so when it comes to sales emails like that, it often comes down to timing. And so we have a lot more confidence knowing your timing is right when we know that people at this company are looking at the solution. And when you're doing this, you also want to keep in mind like how deeply they've been looked at your website. So you might not really want to pull every single company that's visited. Maybe you only want to pull companies that have been on your site for a certain amount of time, or had a certain amount of sessions, or visited certain pages. So you can kind of pull them down in the funnel depending on the campaign that you're running. This is just another example of really working backwards. What do I want to do from a messaging standpoint? Who do I want to target? And then that drips back in this kind of funnel, if you will, to identify what information do I want to grab from who, and then how do I enrich that data. So you can add to your email campaigns, start up or spin up a different campaign, kind of measure that against your maybe just more broad cold emailing campaigns that you're running. But that's just one example. Another one would be the LinkedIn automation. So you might have a more direct approach for the key decision makers or the people that you see most often reaching out. A DM will often get the conversation going, because at this point in this example, you have ads showing up on LinkedIn across maybe the entire department. You have a couple key individuals getting some emails that they're seeing come through, and a DM is often just another way to kind of break through that. And so again, you use that information from the enrichment from the companies you know that are already on your website. Another example might be some sort of DSP campaign. You're running a display ads. You want to break beyond just kind of the LinkedIn examples that I've talked through here, get to a more broad audience across the organization. Now, this is where you might use a tool like AdRoll. That's a tool we use a lot here. It's a really powerful one. And these display campaigns are a really affordable way to get impressions across the web. So maybe here we do just target the entire company because we have the budget for it. Maybe we tighten that up and have different messages go to people in different departments based on the contact information we have. So there's a lot of different ways that we can segment this data and pool really get the message in front of the individuals that we're running here. And a strategy like this, really connecting all of these together into a comprehensive whole, all marketing is trying to get the right message in front of the right people at the right time. And so the timing element is really critical here, and having all of this built out allows for that timing to be very, very consistent. So if you have, maybe you just pool separate from this 1,000 people and you're just hitting them with a bunch of different campaigns and ads and things like that, you might be hoping that you hit them at the right time. Whereas here, you have a little bit more data backing you up. You'll see a lot higher conversion rates in these campaigns. And having this is really just a regular, consistent flow of people who have indicated some interest but not reached out yet, just nudging them along a little bit more. And you'll see a lot more success in campaigns like that than you would at just shotgun approach, broad messages being shot out there. So this again is just a very high overview of an example. I'll make future videos talking about how to actually do the company to people enrichment and shoot that data into some cold email tool like a smart lead or a Lemlist or something like that. But that's a little more technical. We'll dive into it. There's a lot of other resources around that. But the main reason I want to highlight all of this is because integrating a tool like Factors in this example like this in a way that connects to all your different data systems is just a more comprehensive and kind of results-oriented way to approach this addition to your tech stack. And you'll get far better results than simply kind of shooting the tag on there and shooting Slacks over to your sales team, hoping that something converts. So I hope that's helpful. Thanks for tuning in as I chatted a little bit more about leveraging visitor identification data in a way that really moves the needle. Remember, the key here is not just to collect data, but to strategically use that data across multiple channels. By integrating these tools effectively, you'll be able to deliver the right message to the right people at the right time. That's going to result in higher ROI. So thanks for checking out this episode, and please do check out future episodes where I dive in a little bit more technical detail around how you can actually build some of these integrations that we talked about today. Thanks for tuning in.